Peace and power, family. Welcome to another episode of I Thought We Wanted Change, where we have real conversations with real people who speak the unapologetic truth. I am your host, Sister Akingbade. Tonight's episode is titled Breaking the Bloodline Healing Generational Trauma. Generational trauma has deeply impacted our people for centuries. Uh, Okay, give me a second because I did not turn off my phone. Hold on. Okay, when left unaddressed, these wounds are passed down and repeated often, becoming what many refer to as generational curses. So these cycles show up in our families, in our relationships, how we communicate with others, and how we process our emotions. Continuing patterns that were never meant to be inherited. So before we dive deeper into this discussion tonight, I would like to give our guests the opportunity to introduce themselves to the audience, starting with our co-host, the lovely Dr. Nasaba. Please share a little bit about yourself, about who you are, and why healing generational trauma is personally important to you.
Uh, I work in the medical field. I work as a medical speech pathologist, and I work with traumatic brain injury, stroke patients, Parkinson's, and the like. So I work on cognition, speech, and swallowing disorders in acute care settings, and I run into a lot of different cultural situations in which I have to deal with in the medical setting, and then personally dealing with my own generational curses, um, as far as just trying to manage how we treat one another, how we behave, how we interact and communicate with one another. And for my family, that's a generational problem. We tend to treat outsiders better than we treat our own.
Okay, Brother Siraj.
Peace and love, beloveds. My name is Siraj Oloboyega Tukumba Odukunle. I am a founding member of the Man in the Mirror Project. Also your brother across the pond, as you could already hear in my accent. I work in mental health. I work in mental health supported housing currently. I've also worked with children with ADHD. I've worked with children with severe autism, and I've also worked in the public school system. I travel to the States quite often. I host a presentation called "The Unpopular Truth Behind the Black Man's Abuse," and I'm just here today because this topic I've delved into a few times, whether it's my presentation or online, and I'm just here today to share some knowledge and wisdom, and to hear what everybody else has to contribute. Good. Yep.
All right. Chuck?
Black Power, Black Love family. My name is Justin. I go by Chuck King to many. I am a writer for the Bloodline Tribune, and I am an author, the author of Generational Curses, Trauma Letters from Our Time to Yours. Um, this is important because generational curses are not talked about enough in our community, especially publicly, more behind closed doors. Thank you.
Sister Sada.
Oh, I thought I know he was done. Black Power, everybody. Name is Asada. I know you're gonna be like you're not shy, girl. Kind of. I'm working on. It. But my name is Asada. I'm the LC of Huey P. Newton Gun Club, Akron, Ohio chapter. And what I'm really here to pretty much try to gain some closure and probably maybe help somebody out with my testimony, my life story. So, and I'm here to try to get free from generational curses and closure, hopefully. So, I'm done.
Hello. My name is Candace Henderson Freeman, but I go by Candace Shanae Williams. That is actually my entertainer, model, actor name. I am actually a certified spiritual and holistic life coach, and I am the CEO of News Beauty Life Coaching. Um, the reason why this is very important for me for generational curses, because I consider myself actually the generational curse breaker of my family. And this is something that has actually, being 41 years old, has actually went into my adulthood and started as a child. So I actually researched my family to know the different things that has happened in my family to order to heal my family. So this is very important for me to be able to discuss these things on a personal note. Not necessarily I'm a counselor, I have all these different things, but these are things I actually struggle with on a day-to-day basis that I've actually had to coach myself through and how to learn. So this is very important for me to be a part of this, to be able to help others. So I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you, everybody, for your introduction. So first, I want to start off by asking, how do you define generational trauma? Yeah, for whoever wants to answer that question, how would you personally define it?
I can start. I can probably briefly go into it. So I would define it as self self-destructive behavioral patterns which still continue, when it comes to whenever we have offsprings, and it's just a continuation which plagues within the community. And I feel it's something where I guess maybe over the recent years there's been more people now who've actually people have come together, coming on social media to talk about these topics and so forth, or creating spaces to support the people. But I still think there's a lot of work to be done, whether it's on the spiritual side. There's a lot of work to be done when it comes to cleansing spiritually. And also, I feel that we still need to get down to the root, and that's also the whole purpose why I obviously do the presentation, the unpopular truth behind the black man's abuse, so we can get to the root of the issue, by asking certain questions, so we can all have that dialogue, so we can learn from each other. Because it's, as I always tell my audience when I speak with them, it's not just about me talking or trying to teach or whatever the case may be. It's about me also learning from my audience, the participants. So it's something which just having even this platform, it's great to have the dialogue, because even with our foundation, when we say black power, or when we're trying to create some sort of initiative when it comes to our when it comes to the movement, unless we've healed or have done the work to do that, it's going to be a fallacy. Because until we come together and we get to that root and address those tough questions which a lot of people steer away from, then we're going to continuously fall into these self-destructive behavioral patterns. And that's why I love posts like mine, Sister the Saber, for yourself, because it obviously challenges the wider African community. It challenges all, people to come, just to be vulnerable and to share their experiences and so forth. So that's the start. So I don't want to go too much right now, yeah, because I want to hear what everybody else got to say. So
Well, my opinion on generational trauma, if that's what you asked, what's my opinion or what I consider generational trauma is? I think that's the question that you asked. That's the question. Okay.
Yes, I'm on.
Well, I consider that my definition of generational curses or trauma is, I would say mine would be centuries of the same thing happening to per se the women in my family, the love language being the same thing. Um, Not necessarily their attitudes or the way they walk, but necessarily the way they feel about themselves. As far as it being, okay, say, um, abandonment. Okay, it can be abandonment, but they had those issues while they were bearing another person in their stomach, and they care and they produce that. In my situation where I was a product of, say, whatever what my mother was going through in her stomach, I became that. It became a generational thing unknowingly. That what I was going to encounter. So I feel like it's not necessarily a knowing thing. It can be unknown that you don't even know you're taking that on, and you're actually breeding that into another generation. And that's what I've actually been fighting with my whole life. So I feel like it could be a number of things, but I think it's more spiritual, more something that's just that you can be born into. You know, it could be a pattern that just keeps going on: abandonment, rapes, molestations. If they all went through that and they bared another child is going to be born into that type of feelings around them or whatever, that type of situation. That's how I look at it.
Chuck?
Greetings. Generational trauma is inherited problems that never found solutions for, only coping mechanisms.
Right.
And the thing is the coping mechanisms. That is our culture, is how to cope with things, not how to talk about things or be honest with things. Um, Everybody, in my belief, in our diaspora, has generational curses. If you're not a victim of it, you've seen them and you've seen the coping patterns of them. So it's lineage based. Your particular generational curse may be different from mine, but if you trace the lineage, it goes back to your parents, to your grandmother, to your great grandmother, all the way down the line. And there's never a solution, only how to cope with it. That's my definition. Thank you.
Asada?
Oh, I was over here thinking, y'all. Um, my opinion on generational trauma is the best way I'd explain it is an ongoing cycle of history repeating itself. Like I keep seeing the same cycle over and over and over until I pretty much try to figure out how to master it and beat it. Not so much as beat it, but how to overcome it because it keeps rearing its ugly head. I keep seeing it, even in my firstborn, not so much as my secondborn daughter, but I keep seeing it over and over and over. And as much as I hate to admit it, it keeps sneaking up when I think I done overcame it. Sneak in somewhere. It coming through another. It's hard to explain. It coming through another avenue, another way of thinking. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of it that way. That it'd sneak up on me. You know what I'm saying? So that's the best way I can describe it. It's like keeps repeating itself until I finally come to some conclusion of admitting, like I know this is a problem. You know?
All right. Who did we just add?
Yes.
Who did we add?
Okay, I was
Ali,
on mute the whole time. Brother Ali. What's up,
Oh,
Brother
okay.
Ali?
what's happening?
Good
Hey.
to see you. Thank you for joining. I was asking everybody what is their definition of generational trauma, their personal opinion.
Oh man, my personal opinion. Ugh. I want to say like those things that have been passed down from generation to generation. whether it's um, cursing, or if it's drinking, if it's drugs, if it's abuse. It's those experiences that you deal things that you experience in your household from family members or people that are just really really close to you.
Do you all feel as if, let's say something happened in your family? Hey, peace, brother critical. If so, and how you doing, Kathy Tatum? Let me speak to our people that's watching. Peace, brother Kia. How's everybody doing this evening? I don't want to ignore, our audience. So peace, Sister Amina. Good to see you. So I wanted to ask, right? Let's say there's a situation that has happened, let's say 30 years ago, and you find that same situation happening with the younger generation, right? Let's say that let me see. Let me say abuse. Let's say physical abuse happened in the household and it was a certain actual situation. Have y'all ever seen that being repeated in the next generation afterwards? It could be like the same situation, but just a little bit different.
Yeah.
I have.
Yes.
I think in my culture, that's just something which is it's almost like a resume.
Mhm.
The way what it's like a resume. People feel, I think, from the elder generations, they just feel the best form of discipline is to be physically abusive because they feel if they're physically abusive, obviously they don't see it as abuse because once again, as I said, they see it as discipline, but they say if they continuously impose that, then that child will be obedient, and it's something which has been passed down. Obviously, if we get into the even into the root of that, where when it came to our the slave master, who was obviously beating the those who are enslaved. I'm not gonna say slaves because I don't we're not I want to be when it comes to our wording and stuff like that. So those of us to our some of the our forefathers who are enslaved, they've more or less adopted. They more like they've adopted that mindset of feeling that this is something which is a it's a must. So within the Nigerian within our community, it's something where there's many uh of many Nigerians among us who still continuously do that. So that's definitely something which has been passed down, and something which is a learned behavior.
Well, just to piggyback on that one as well. Growing up in the United States, I guess, in a black a black household, actually the slave mentality was a lot of times the way that we were punished. We had to go pick our switches. We had to go pick our own switches. If the switches weren't big enough and everything like that, you had to go take it back and get a one that's going to leave a mark. So it was never nothing but that. It went from
Mm.
the slave up until now, 2025. People still beat their kids that way because they feel like that's how they were taught and that's the only way they're going to learn. So I can say that um, as a grown woman, that was my first love language. The way I was beat like that, and that's how I was told to listen and follow directions. And really, it was the most toxic thing that you could ever teach somebody. But back then, even now, even sometimes even the older generation still feels that's way to handle it. So yeah, that's what all I was raised on. So that's why I want to piggyback off that.
Um, it does pass down, and you can see it in different generations, and there definitely is a generational gap, but we'll get there. What I want to say though is that it's programming. When when you look at our culture, a lot of the generational curses that we have now were never authentically from our culture. And being descendants of lineage, we have to be honest that our entire culture was stripped away and certain programs came into existence. Grandma's silence is programming. Um, just like the slave master, and I don't like to refer on that. I like to focus on our people, but just like they intense silence with force, if you look at 2025, we intense silence with force. If a kid's too loud in church, be quiet, I'm gonna hit you. You gotta tie the lineage back to the program. So I don't like to say that, we pass it down because I believe that the black family and the household comes from love. It's this unconscious programming that we continue not to address, that we almost are in denial of, that we have to fix. And that's why you see the younger queens that think abuse is love. That goes all the way back down to their lineage when the slave master had the whip and then came back and comforted her. And the black man wasn't around because we didn't have an option to be it. It's programming rather than being passed down on intention.
So do you think with us there have to be some type of accountability when it comes to the way that we treat each other or the way that we handle situations in our own household, even if we were taught a certain thing?
For sure. And I think that's where education comes in. When you
Right.
have a program that is enforced on us, we have to wipe that clean and re educate. And then the biggest thing about education is we've been programmed on that too. We've been programmed how to educate people, and it's completely wrong. You educate people by getting down to their level. You don't educate people by teaching as you know everything. At first, you have to get down to their level. I learned that in activism. I couldn't go and talk to these young brothers that was violent towards each other. There was nothing to get active on each other if I couldn't get down to their level first. I couldn't preach to these brothers. I couldn't tell them about Garvey or tell them about George Jackson. I couldn't say anything until I got a personal relationship with them. So we have to be accountable, but that comes through education first. If you educate somebody and then they don't do it, you can reprimand. But if they don't know what they, a lot of us are just winging stuff. We are a culture of winging. We don't have the luxury of, despite the sacrifices of our ancestors, go find the books. They're gone. You ain't gonna get that in school. 90% of black children go to public school. It starts in the home and it starts with education. I definitely agree with that.
So I would see myself just like Candy Trinae stated that she is the generational breaker of her family. I feel as if I am the generational breaker of my family. It's certain things that I have brought to the forefront that has gotten some people upset or riled up to where they didn't even want to talk to me anymore. But things play out the way that it should. And I believe that some of the problem is accountability for some of our elders, because we have some elders that do not take accountability for the things that they have done or haven't done, or even try to rewrite history as if we were not there. So, you know,
Right.
I was raised in a West Indian family, and in a West Indian family, it's like if you speak your mind, you're being disrespectful. You understand what I'm saying? So I taught my kids that, you can speak to me about how you feel as long as you say it in a respectful manner. And do you feel that healing could start if there was some family members that took accountability for the things that happened. Let's say that there's I hear it all the time. I wasn't raped by an uncle or anything like that, but I hear a lot in our community. Well, so and so touched me, or Uncle, let's say Uncle Pete, uh, raped me, and it was swept underneath the rug. So how can someone heal even if their family never takes accountability for things that has happened to them?
Well, personally, I feel healing takes place when, whether they take accountability or not of what happened, once you realize the truth and you settle with that. I have to take accountability for people that never even thought it was a problem to stop in order to heal, right? So, my thing per se, when I say when it comes to that, being a generational curse breaker for my family, because I'm the last one that you were going to touch per se. I was the last one that you were going to do these things to, so it never goes to my next legacy. But I'm also fighting for 4 generations before me that it should have been stopped. So I tell people, when it comes to my story, you may not look at it like that, but my grandmother had 3 different children, 3 different men, abusive relationships, went down to my mother, went down to my sister, went down to me. We have the same exact pattern of love language that should have been stopped a long time ago if we were taught right, right? So I, sadly, my mother died. She died. So I never was really, after that, I was not taught how to love. So I had to go through the traumatic experience to love myself, to learn what the other women did not do for me to change my future. Okay. So it's not always going to be that person's going to say sorry like they should. Right. They're not here to say sorry, but I'm going to say sorry for you because I'm stopping it now. I'm not dropping my daughter off at granny's house where everybody got molested at and had popsicles. No. Why would I drop my baby off over there knowing that everybody in the family been molested over there? That should have stopped way before me. Common sense, right? But if you don't look at where the problem lies, where it's rooted from, you're going to keep on doing the same thing. Yeah, uncle and auntie and everybody did the same thing. Why? Because you guys are doing the same thing, what's comfortable for you instead of addressing it. So I look at it like this. I had to go back in my history of my family to realize who got touched, who went through the rapes, who went through the same pattern as me to stop it. So even now, I'm married, okay? I have three children with 3 different men, same pattern, but I'm married now. I'm taking back my life mentally, spiritually, and physically, and getting the help that I need. It's totally different. They died still wondering who they were. I broke that curse because I can be in a healthy relationship no matter all the trauma that I had. And they didn't know that they could do that per se, but I had to learn that I could. And that's how I healed. I healed based on what they did not do, and I had to learn what to do. So that's how I healed mine.
Mm.
Here's a
For
quote.
for
Um,
me, I had to set boundaries. So I'm a boundary setting type of person. So if I try to express to my family members the difficulties of how, what's that?
Is
Oh,
someone muted my mic because my mic keep going on mute and I'm not doing it?
I don't, I don't think so.
I don't appreciate that because I'm the host.
I know that's right.
Okay, continue.
But yeah, so like in my family, we have this, and Natural knows, she knows my family, and we have a tendency to mistreat one another. We have a tendency, and I'm telling you, it goes. When I say it goes back, it goes back. All my family back in Baltimore, all over the place. It's like it's the it's just it's amazing how harsh we are to one another, how judgmental, how uncaring and unforgiving that we can be towards one another, because we're family. And family, it's okay to say what you want, how you want, when you want, and I don't care what anybody think about it.
Mm.
And I had to really step in and say, well, nah, not here. Not here. We're gonna set some boundaries around what you say, and how we're going to speak to one another. So it took me many, many years to get to this point where I had to understand that I can't share everything with them, even though you would expect to, because they're your family. It's your mom. You're supposed to be able to say anything to your mom. No, you can't. I don't share anything that goes on in my marriage with my mom and my sister or anybody else. I don't share, I have limited personal, financial things about my life. Every aspect of my life now has boundaries with people in my family. And I've found peace in doing that instead of expecting them to change. They're going to be who they're going to be. I just needed to create that safe space for me to be able to function within the family. So now when things go too far, things are said, things are done, it just bounces off of me now. So that's kind of what I did. I set boundaries as opposed to attacking the issue and having them correct it and change it. I said, I did one of those. You gonna do what you gonna do. I'm out. Two deuces.
Right.
So
And,
Mm.
and
that was me.
and I'm proud of you for that because you came a long way with that one.
Thank you.
Salute to you, sister.
Yes. So, Sister Hell said the elders are the problem covering up everything. So I feel as if there's a difference between elders and seniors because an elder come with wisdom and guidance. I don't want to disrespect, but that's the truth. I mean, if you're just a certain age, there's a such thing as old fools, and some old fools just can't change their ways. And I'm saying that in the most respectful manner. I'm not talking about my family. I'm just talking about in general. You
Yep.
understand? So I feel like there's a difference between elders and seniors.
Yep. We got some ratchet 60-year-olds out there.
Sister Tasha said she had to learn that it's a difference between family and relatives, and she taught her children that at an early age.
That's a good point. That's something I'd like to kind of investigate a little bit more. Family. What did she say? A difference between family and
There's a difference between family and relatives.
what do you mean by that?
Relatives in regards to those you related to,
Yeah.
and family, like your family could be your comrades. You
Because
know,
you don't, what she's basically trying to say is that family is
What you
who you're
make it?
around, who you love, who loves you.
yeah,
Relatives are just people that are
yeah,
blood related.
yeah,
Gotcha.
So Asada,
yeah, yeah,
Miss
yeah.
Asada, you've been a little quiet there, and I know you have so much to say, and I understand you may not know exactly how to say it, but
Just say it, yeah, say it however it comes to your mind.
Well, when you when you guys are talking about accountability, this is funny because I just had a conversation maybe with my cousin about maybe 6 weeks back, and because my aunt is the one who, when I got molested by my uncle, I was molested by 3 family members, and when it came down to my uncle, my aunt was like, "Oh, she's making it up. She's crazy. She don't know what she's talking about." But yet my story somehow never seemed to change. You know what I'm saying? Um, I was the one that testified to put my uncle in prison at the age of 8. After being molested for at least 3 years, individual. And and the thing that I'm struggling with here at 45 years old is that she never even not once thought to even say I'm sorry. So she never took accountability, but she never, I was talking to my cousin about her daughter. I said, well, she never even thought to say I was sorry. But as my cousin began to speak, and when you guys were talking about accountability, I began to think about it. Like, my cousin was like, well, you got to understand some things happened to my mom too when she was younger. And and the thing that crossed my mind was, is it a possibility my aunt may be a victim too? This is the things that this is just what I thought of tonight while listening to you guys talk. That's why I've been quiet, because what if my aunt may have been a victim, and here I was getting ready to crash out on my aunt, honestly, like I literally was getting ready to crash out on my aunt, y'all, and like really just be like, you ain't nothing to me, but not, I'm thinking about it, like maybe this is when I'm talking about history repeating itself. So,
And a lot of times,
but she,
yeah.
like I said, I walked around hurt for so long that if she would have just said I was sorry, maybe that would minimize some of the hurt and the pain. You know what I'm saying? If she would just take some accountability, but my cousin said that she may not know how to take accountability. And she is an elder. She's in her 70s. You're supposed to have wisdom. I know as I don't know your African name, Sister Natural. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to explain it to me.
Somebody.
But but as you were saying, that they may not, you can't really like call her an elder. So, in the back of my head, I don't even call her my aunt. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be disrespectful tonight, but that is my aunt. But I'm just like, if I could just sit down and talk to her and be like, you never once said I'm sorry. And my cousin's trying to cover for her. Well, I can stand in her spot. And I'm like, no, you're not the one that hurt me and put me through all this pain. So it's like now she's trying to cover for her mother, and I haven't talked to my cousin since. So I'm just like, I'm still trying to process the thought of how am I going to get my type of closure, because I'm never going to get accountability.
Sometimes these elders, seniors, family members, um, their way of dealing with their own trauma is the avoidance of it, you know? It's like if it never happened in their mind, then it never happened. And I think that that's very common, I'm noticing, among a lot of older people. They tend to say, it didn't happen, or it didn't happen that way, or that's over exaggerating. All of those are generally, some of the statements that are made, because it's easier to do that than it is to really face it. And I don't think, and sometimes I don't even think they're doing it intentionally. It's just
Right.
like
Or
that's their coping mechanism, like Chuck was
yeah,
saying. That's the coping. That, like,
Mm,
if and then when you attack it and push it, they're only gonna fight back, and they're gonna turn it around on you and make it
Right.
seem like you're the trouble, you're the problem, and it's only because you're
gaslight.
trying to crack at a shell they don't want to even touch. It's shiny and pretty, and they don't want to touch it. And here you come with a little chisel trying to crack it open. They're like, nah, no, you ain't. We gonna wax on, wax off this joint, you know?
Mm,
And they want to
I,
back you off of it. And I think
with,
that's the way that they handle things, and they make you look crazy.
Okay, someone's trying to say something. Is
Go
it you,
ahead.
Chuck?
yes, I just appreciate everyone sharing. I want to revert back to, I believe it was the Queen that brought the elders in the chat. First thing about the elders, all due respect to my elders. Elders have so much for me. Elders are not going to change. That's a wrap. And we need to be honest about that. Have you ever tried to change an elder? It's tough. It's tough to get that level of respect. You're taught I'm older. I have a more mindset than you. When a
season,
lot of
yeah.
our activists were in their 20s trying to change the world. Elders have done their time and their sacrifices, but we have to be honest and understand that some elders are not going to change. Even
yeah,
elders
a
that
lot of them are like that. A
have
lot of them,
elders
and
that
they also, I've been around elders that, hey, nobody helped me, so why should I
Wow.
care per se? It happened to me, and everybody threw it under the rug, so they did nothing about it too as well.
elders that have done good for the people have generational curses that they're not going to change. Secondly, accountability. That's a very strong word. I want to be completely honest with this. Some people will not give you accountability and you still have to heal. Do not get caught up in a world. I know it's easier said, but as a people, we do want that. Several times in my life, I wanted accountability. And we have to get to a sense of humility within ourselves to say, you know what? A lot of times we want accountability for pride. We want to hear that word. Yeah, I was wrong. And it tears us up inside. The healing process for generational curses does not include accountability, but it does include conversation.
Mm.
And sometimes you'll have to have that conversation with someone who isn't even a part of the situation. You know, they might not even be a part of the situation. Just getting it out in an open setting sometimes is enough, because when you go searching for accountability and you don't get it, drag yourself lower in the hole and you make yourself feel like you're not of value to receive that accountability. And that's the completely wrong thing, you know? You can't control other people's actions. And I think elders, they've done their time. And the good thing about lineage directly, I've heard Queen said it, is that they decided right here in their lineage that they were going to change so that the future of the lineage can make different decisions. They stopped
Were
it
you
right
guys
now,
waiting on me?
you know? So those are the only two things I have about the
I guess
elders,
I feel like it's fine.
accountability. But I just wanted to share those.
I'll start
Yeah,
there.
I was.
Wait. Sister Asada was trying to say something. Can we allow her to speak really quick?
Oh no, I thought you guys were waiting on me to say something, but you know, and I'm gonna say this because I don't know how my mic got muted, but anyway,
Oh, because
um,
I mute everybody whenever people are talking if there's noise in the background. Like I
oh,
think one of y'all did to me, but um,
well,
go ahead, girl. I know you have a lot to say because I could tell by your face.
I mean, it's really it's really a touchy subject for me because like I said, I've struggled. See, I was 80. It was 1988 when I testified against my uncle, put him in prison, and I was labeled the crazy one. I became the black sheep. I became the one that had to pay for putting my uncle in prison for molesting me. So I got left in the children's home, which they gonna now call children. Could now call it child protective services. I had to grow up, age out of the foster care system. I never really got back. I got the chance to go back home to my biological family. I aged out at 19, a little bit after shortly after I graduated high school. Um, and as the young lady, I don't know her name. I'm not good with names on this podcast, y'all, so y'all have to forgive me. The lady with the pretty blonde hair. As she was saying that, how she was talking about how the cycle repeated itself, that I have children by four different guys. And I began to realize how when I was, I had got molested when I was younger and I didn't have a father figure. Then I realized how promiscuous I became. And I think back on a lot of stuff when I was younger, that if I would have had a father figure, like children's services kept my father out of my life. Like they didn't want me to have a relationship with my father or his side of the family. So I had to grow up in foster care, not because it was not necessarily what was wanted and designed, but that's just what they wanted because they didn't want me to have. I don't know why, but I never understood why. But as I've gotten older and I'm starting to realize that a lot of my life would have went differently had I had that male father figure. I don't think I would have made half the mistakes I made. I think I probably wouldn't have, my life would have went a whole lot totally different. I don't regret my life, but this whole generational trauma, I have a lot of trauma, y'all. I'm still trying to work past some of the stuff from a child, even from at the age of 5. So that's why I said it's an ongoing cycle and it just keep coming back. And I'm like, man, I thought I dealt with this already, but here it come back as something else. It comes back in another disguise. So, I don't even know where to start with this stuff, but I do know that it can be a hindrance. It can be a growth too, but it can really hinder a person when they don't know how to get past it. I'm trying. It's hard, but it's so much. And I think my first step is I have to forgive myself. That's hard though, y'all. I be beating up on myself. Sister be beat all up. I think I'm my own worst enemy, y'all, for real. I mean, I can smile and say that now, but when it was like maybe about 20 years ago, it was really hard to admit that. Like, I was like, no, I love me. And I would be in denial, but it's really difficult. And I don't want nobody to ever have to hold that stuff in for 20 plus years. I've been holding stuff in probably for over 40 years. And that's the honest God living truth. I don't want nobody to be like me, just not deal with stuff, because then when it start to really come to the surface, you realize you haven't dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep.
What are your thoughts, Brother Ali?
I agree with what she's saying, what the sister's saying. Um, as far as the elders, our old people, I'm gonna say it like that. Um, I deal with it. I still deal with it today with some people in my family. Uh, when it comes down to accountability, I no longer. I learned a hard lesson by asking somebody of the elders in my family about some things that happened. And when I got attitude and got anger and why you asking about that? That ain't your business. And because it affected me. So I learned that yes, they're not a lot of elders are not going to take accountability, and they're not taking accountability because the person that hurt them was never held accountable. So a lot of times when you're dealing with someone who has been hurt themselves, abused physically or in any shape, whatever type of way that abuse may have came, and let's just say that person who hurt your elder, aunt, cousin, uncle, daddy, mama, and that individual died. A lot of times these people that hurt them have died and passed on. So it's the abuser, it's the one who's abused that becomes the abuser. And they don't get the opportunity to hold the person who helped them, hurt them accountable. A lot of times back in the day, we were taught that what happened in this house stayed in this house. Um, you didn't go around the neighborhood talking what happened in your household. You didn't go tell the school. You didn't tell your neighbors. So you had to keep that trauma inside. You have to keep that getting cussed out, being called B's and H's by your auntie or by your grandmother, because a lot of our grandparents had 5 miles. So that's just how they talk, but that's how they would talk too. So we don't, when you ask them those questions, of course you're going to get all that heat. And I used to get a lot of that heat. So I started understanding that, man, you know what? She's not going to never tell the truth. Um, did it rub off on me in a lot of ways? Yeah, I adapted the anger side of it. I adapted that side to where I fight before I ask a lot of questions. So and
Same.
it cost me a lot of time in prison. So now I gotten to where that anger or that side of that emotion, which to me is also dealing with mental health. I've learned how to channel it a lot better. Stay away from the people, places, and things that trigger me. Uh, even family. I don't deal with a lot of my family just for that reason, because family knows how to push your buttons. They know how to they know how to trigger you. They know what things to say to set you off, and they may say, "Well, I wasn't saying it like that." Yeah, but you said it. So, and they know that it's gonna take you there. So, I could understand really deeply from experience, man. And even in 2025, going into 2026, I'm dealing with a lot of it with my immediate family right now, and because we really not talking, so that's facts.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It's painful, man. It's hurtful. I can tell you that because we want answers. We want to know why I'm like this. You want to know why you think the way you think. You want to know why you do certain things. You want to know why you may lash out at a child at certain times. If you think back, maybe it happened to you when you were growing up. You know what I mean? So you have to think about maybe why you're the way you are. And even when it comes down to sexual activity, sometimes if there was a promiscuous relative in your family, a lot of times that stuff get passed down to you. And that's why I'm big on not letting certain people in my house, because certain spirits, whether people believe it or not, I believe that certain types of entities attach themselves. And I'm just only saying this not to put this You know, I don't want nobody that's not Muslim take this the wrong way, but a lot of times we have things that attach themselves to us, and when you're not morally right to a degree yourself, those things latch on to you,
Hmm.
and we tend to take on those characteristics. And if it's being promiscuous, if it's being someone who curses a lot, or maybe someone who just out the blue, you just want to start doing drugs, you just want to start drinking a whole lot. You know, we think back to, do I have an uncle that was alcoholic? Yes. Do I have a parent that was a drug addict? Yes. Did I have a cousin or somebody that was older than me that was super sexually active? Yes. So it could be a grandmother. You know, we never know until we dig deep into that. And once you dig deep, you can sit back and say, okay, okay, this is why this is going on. But now you have to figure out how do you break it.
Right.
What roles do or what roles does self-awareness play in breaking generational cycles?
Therapy.
Well, every role and self-awareness, when it came to generational cycles, you got to know what the cycle is that you need to break. You know what I'm saying? You have to be self-aware of what it is that you're breaking. You can't just go in like, okay, well, I'm just gonna fix this and this sounds right, and it's really something way deeper that you need to target. I could say it's a bad attitude all day, but really, no, it's a centuries of, you know, things that's going on way before me. I just have a bad attitude about it, but that's not what I need to break. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So that's how it's really all about, mine is so deep. It's hard to even determine which one to look into that's deeper than the other one. You know what I'm saying? It's so much. It's like, okay, which one's worse than the other? But once you realize, to me, I would say my goal is, what is my goal to heal? What is a suitable goal of what's healing to me? Because you got to look at, what are you trying to heal from? You got to start from one thing to the next. Because when it's a cycle, an ecosystem of trauma, your whole life and stuff like that, really, you don't really know where to start. You just got to know you got to start somewhere. And really, mine was going to who it began with before me. That's where I started at.
So, Candy Trinae, I remember you telling me that you've healed from a lot of things, right? So, how was your how has healing changed the way that you show up in relationships with people and family spaces?
Well, even right now, it's really actually really hard for me to be around family spaces. But I got to a point where, even though I found out all the things that happened in my family to my mother per se, or a long line of things, I had to look at, again, had to look at before my mother, before, to be able to be like, to forgive those. I mean, because a lot of times it was carried on things for people who didn't love themselves, didn't know what to do. You know, I could be angry at you, but can I be? Can I be angry with you without knowing what to do when I didn't know what to do, or somebody else didn't know what to do? So I say, I had to learn to be uncomfortable, no matter what. You know what I'm saying? Because those are things that are beyond my control. There's nothing I can do about that. I wasn't even thought of. I wasn't even thought of when these people were going through these things. I only can think about how I feel that I'm going through it, and how I felt when I didn't have a voice, or you know what I'm saying. I can only relate to where I did. I can't go back and blame them per se, because at the end of the day, just as ignorant as I was, you were probably worse. So now it's like I said, I have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable around the ones that victimize them and nobody did nothing about. You're gonna have to be okay. Like, hey, I stopped it because you can't do it to mine. But going back and trying to um, make a comfortable space for everybody else who's not trying to make a comfortable space, that's something I had to get out of it. I had to get out of that, trying to fix everybody. So I would have to say, regardless of what I found out, long history of what such and such did and what didn't stop, I have to still go back to, okay, in that time in their life, who were they? Did they even know who they were before I could sit there and even judge? We can't judge anybody, right? We can't really say, hey, I would have did this and that and the other. But now that I have come to a comfortable space and knowing that it wasn't my fault, and knowing that um, this was before me, that something should have been stopped, I no longer blame myself. I look at, like, what can I do now so it stops? so that it stops. You know what I'm saying? Because there's nothing I could have did before it happened to me, you know? So now it's like, I know this happened. I know this, they should have stopped it right here. And I know it could have stopped me right there. But now I know I'm stopping it so it doesn't get to my child. So that's how I'm comfortable to know, like, no matter what room I walk in, it's not going to happen to mine. So,
Absolutely. So, what other ways do you think that we could do things differently in order to break the cycle? And
well,
that
mine
question is
was,
for anybody.
I feel that, are you asking? Well, mine is actually talking about it and bringing up and admitting the truth. But sadly, like we know, a lot of them will not do it. They will not sit there and talk about, but I still tell people to try. Still try to talk about it. I said, because even though like, oh, they're the elders, they won't talk through it. Create different ways for them to be comfortable to talk about their past, maybe to come out, and do and be able to talk about it. Because a lot of times, they want to talk about it, but they don't know how, maybe. So I look at different things now, as I talk to people, depending on what goal you're trying to meet, what is it that you're trying to accomplish in this goal? Because if you're trying to accomplish for everybody in the family to sit down and talk, that's not a realistic goal, especially if there's history of people that are not even here. So it needs to be realistic of what you're trying to accomplish. You know what I'm saying? And you got to focus on yourself, because focusing on everybody else is going to isn't focus on everybody else and hoping to get to your goal is going to stop you from your goal. So I would tell to try, but even if you can't accomplish that, show. I had to show my people my healing. I had to show them the trauma that I went through and created a beauty out of it. Regardless if I went through a crash out season, but they see now the healing season, when before they seen the crash out season. So I now, to me, I have to be an example for the people who may not ever want to be an example. I have to be one now.
I love that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm just gonna quickly say I'm gonna segue from what the sister just said. I think it starts from the person in the mirror. So one thing I've learned along my journey is not to always have placed too much expectations in people. You know, a huge part of the breaking the cycle. Still don't like the word curses. Don't sit well with me, but one thing I will say is breaking the cycle would also happen when you're able to forgive yourself. Once you're able to forgive yourself, because when you forgive yourself, that also enables you to move forward and make sound decisions when it comes to the healing process, because a lot of the times, I think, even I know a lot of people spoke about their personal situations, but just to quickly touch on a situation I had with I grew up with an abusive father, and I remember it's even this is even in my documentary, um I had a conversation with my father where I was expecting an apology, and I didn't get that apology. So obviously at the time it made me feel rage, anger, and so forth. But after, as I aged, I realized, this healing really starts from me, just taking accountability and and following the necessary steps. So I had to implement. I had to go and see a psychotherapist. I had to go and research and do, learn more about our traditional and spiritual systems, when it comes to because healing is just, when we think about healing, a lot of people think about counseling, the stereotypical, you know places to resources to use, but there's so healing, there's so much what comes with it. You can even get creative with healing. Some people do their meditations, some people use the sages, some people go to their spiritual advisors, some people even cleanse themselves in water.
Mhm.
There's so much what comes along with it, and there's so much work when it comes to healing, and healing's also an ongoing journey. So just wanted to put that out there.
To me, you know that you're healed when you handle certain situations a whole different way. whenever you could think about something that bothered you so much that you don't have that hurt and that anger anymore. Healing to me is setting a good example for your children and others that are watching. That's a good sign of healing. That's a good sign that you have been healed from a lot of the traumas that you faced. It's a way that you even interact with other people. And just like Sister Asada said about, being a crash out, it was at times where somebody will push my buttons wrong and I'll punch them in the face. But I can't. Hey, I admit it. I was a fighter growing up. But I realized the reason why I was a fighter is because I had to fight. And I don't want to sound like Celie from The Color Purple or whatever, but I grew up in a violent household where I, witnessed, at times, until the age of 12 where my father beat on my mother, but my mother fought back. And I was, a victim of abuse, even though this is how I know that I knew better. I knew not to put my hands on my children. I didn't deal with my children in that type of manner because I didn't want to be that. But one thing I would say inherited from my father was that temper, and I had to learn how to deal with it, and people used to push my buttons, like I don't. They did. I'm not gonna lie. They used to push because I was quiet, and I realized the reason why some people did me that way because I was an empath. I was the peacemaker. I was the one that was forgiving. But then after a while, I noticed, okay, being so forgiving, I became a rug. That people felt like they can do whatever they want to towards me, and that's family, that's friends, that's associates, that's people that that I've dealt with for a very long time. I started thinking, I'm like, okay, well, y'all are doing this because y'all can. Y'all are doing this because I'm allowing you to do it. But once I started speaking and using my voice and really telling people how I felt, and then not being a scapegoat for others, knowing that, hey, this didn't happen like this. Like, don't put in my head that it happened a certain way. And I stayed quiet about it because I didn't want to expose you. So I was a scapegoat for a couple of things when it came to my family. It's like, okay, well, Natural said something about this, and this is how I found out. You knew all along. And I kept that to myself until recently. I had to tell somebody, okay, pause. We're going to stop doing this because you knew. And that person didn't talk to me for months, but hey, I had to let them know, like, I'm not your scapegoat. We're not going to keep doing this. We're not going to rewrite history as if I wasn't a part of that history. So sometimes you have to do what you have to do. You're going to lose people in your healing process and you're going to gain some people, but hopefully you gain the right people.
I found a very weird realization, um, and that was that there are no solutions to generational curses. And what I mean, um, it only starts when we start having conversations to each individual person. And I want to be clear of this. When I mean having conversations, what better way to rebuild our communities than to heal together? We all on some, I'm a heal by myself, I'm a heal with my family, I'm a heal. What better way than to heal each other? It doesn't, sometimes, it doesn't have to be your sister, your brother, or your cousin. And I realize that we may can give advice to
You should
generational,
know.
but until these type of conversations happen consistently amongst our tribe, until we consistently make it to norm to talk to each other about these type of things. Um, I like healing sessions, when you can not have judgment, Sometimes it's better to talk to strangers because you feel like you won't have judgment. You may have somebody that you're real close to, and you don't want to tell them everything because that's your boy, that's your girl. You don't want to share your business. But even with strangers, and to get that off your chest, because you never know what that stranger went through as well. But I think that's a big part of the piece that we're missing in the community is we got a whole bunch of people with generational curses trying to work together, and we ain't never sat down together and talk about it.
I
Try to
would
heal.
like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I would like to say this though, even though we are a community, we still can't trust everybody in that community. Even if we do have a healing circle, and I understand what you're saying that we all should heal as a whole. But the thing is, we can't even trust one another. We can't even unite with one another. So how are we going to heal together?
So that's the problem why we can't trust each other because we don't try to start the healing. When I say healing sessions, I'm not telling you to pull all your business out. That's not what I'm saying. I'm
Mhm.
saying to sit together in a room for once and talk about similar things that you've gone through. It can be
Mhm.
generic, you know, but you're right. We can't work together, and nothing that we have tried so far has allowed us to work together, and it's because we're not healed. That's the direct reason. We're not healed. We don't know, and I'm just being honest. We don't even know how to communicate, and you got to bring it back to the youth because if you look at the youth, look at the violence, and you look at what's going on in my community, where kids are killing each other, if they don't see us love each other, we can preach, oh, love your brother all day long. We can preach that. But if they don't see it, because everything they hear on the radio is hate each other. If they don't see it, beyond prayer, beyond anything, if they don't see it, we don't have a choice but to heal together. There is no how can we. We don't have a choice anymore. If we don't start healing together, we're gonna go down this path that we're already on, and it's a
So
horrible.
yeah, so Dr. Naseba has her finger up. You go ahead and chime in.
It's a statement and a question at the same time to everyone on the panel.
Hmm.
Um, and let me know if you've run into this same experience. Recently, I had made a post on social media about something. I can't remember what it was. But what ends up happening, I'm noticing often, is that people don't think what they're doing is wrong. They don't even see their behaviors, their actions, any of it as wrong. They see it as a product of what they've been through, or a product of their environment, or a product of their generational trauma, or a product of but they don't acknowledge it. So how I feel like, how are we going to get through to people who don't even see it?
Oh no, because the way I look at things is you can't save everyone. I
That's
think
see,
I think there's a I think even when I've been in the community for almost 15 years now, and I think as there's been a lot of growth along my journey, and I've just realized you can only um reach out to people who want to hear your message.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the best you could do, because the issue which we encounter is a lot of people will normalize dysfunctional behavior. They will
Right.
normalize the dysfunctional behavior, so obviously they're not going to see it as an issue. They're going to see it as something which is just natural, which comes natural to them, because of just from what the brother just mentioned. If we're hearing, even when the music, if we're hearing all of these dysfunctional, self-destructive lyrics to the music, then it's just I don't know. This it's like SpongeBob. Monkey see, monkey do. That's the issue. So we just have to continue, having these type of dialogues, where people tune in, they share the um the content, and we just have to keep on doing what we're doing within the community. Even with myself, I didn't know when I started the Man in the Mirror project. I didn't know I was going to touch. I didn't even have I didn't even know I was going to touch people internationally, but it was because of that enthusiasm, um which I have within, and just me taking that step, where, because obviously I like traveling, so I just thought, let me come and travel, and I'm still doing the work which touches many, a number of people globally. So that's the mission, and we're gonna all continue to do this. So I appreciate you guys having me on, and I appreciate hearing everybody's testimonies. It's all love.
Absolutely. So I want to focus on some things that we can do in order to break these cycles. First of all, stop protecting harmful behavior, stop protecting pedophiles, stop protecting people, stop protecting harmful behavior in the name of family or in the name of tradition. Stop,
Shay,
teach, emotional literacy or oh my
lit-
gosh, it's big right now.
literacy, yeah,
Yeah, that actually come out sometimes. I chop everything down in syllables. So
emotional intelligence.
yes, y'all know how I do it, right? So teach it early. Allow children to express themselves in a safe environment. Have an open door policy to where they could come to you and speak to you about certain things that bother them. Don't just shut your kids down because you feel like they're children and they don't have feelings or they have nothing to say. That's where a lot of this stems from. It is childhood. And we grow up with these traumas and we feel unwanted or we feel unheard. And we have, like, we lash out at the world because of it. So, for one, let the children have a voice as long as they're respectful. Have that open door policy, where they could come to you and they could express their feelings and they could tell you how, if you hurt their feelings or not. I know it's kind of hard sometimes for us, the black, parents, but that's how I raise my children. If and one thing too is apologizing if you know that you've done something wrong or you could have handled something better. My husband would tell you I would apologize to my kids later on, when I think about what I've done or how I handled the situation. I'm like, I apologize if I hurt you. Or I apologize if this didn't go the way that you expected it to go, or whatever the case is. Now, if they did something that they had no business doing and I had to discipline them for them for that, I'm not apologizing for that, but certain things that I said that I probably could have said better, I would apologize for something like that. Model healthy behavior instead of repeating harmful patterns. Be something totally different. If you know that your father was an alcoholic, right? Don't don't become an alcoholic yourself. Try to limit your drinks or drink something else. Like, it's just the repeated patterns. We can't keep doing this because if we keep doing this or allowing this type of behavior is going to continue, to our children, to our children's children. You understand what I'm saying? And that's how generational curses begin. And I know that you don't like the word curses, but if there's something like negative that doesn't go away after a while, it's looked at as being a curse. Okay. So we have to, you know, seek help, seek therapy, do the spiritual work, whatever it is that you believe in, and community support, just like Brother Chuck was saying, but also be mindful of the people that you speak to within the community because sometimes you may speak to a person and y'all fall out and all your business on the street, but then some things are added to it, so just be careful of who you speak to, model healthy behavior instead of harmful behavior. Um, and accept that, healing sometimes may create distance. You may not be around the same people anymore. Your circle may change, even relatives, family members, and distance could be very necessary. You know, I wrote a post just the other day, just yesterday, about exclusion, right? And sometimes that's not always a negative thing. Sometimes it's a positive thing, because I have some of my family members that's actually scared of me, because, you know, I love, I love skulls. You know, I wear skulls, and that's just who I am. But then when I did a lot of spiritual work, and a lot of, I'm not going to go all into detail. It was exposed why I was the way that I was, you know, and the way that I am, and the things that I like. You understand what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
don't be too quick to judge people. Give people a chance. You know, learn accountability, not only, for yourself. Don't expect too much out of people, because sometimes you may never get that apology. Like, Brother Siraj was saying, and Brother Chuck was saying, and a couple of you were saying, some people may pass on before you ever get that apology.
Yeah.
But one thing I do not do is, I do not apologize if I don't mean it. So maybe some of these people just don't mean it, and they don't want to apologize. So what we have to do is try to, overcome the feelings that we feel, and try to heal ourselves, because we may never get that apology. So just do the work on yourself.
And
So
breaking the cycle starts from you.
Yes.
You know.
yeah, everybody's got a different way of healing. My suggestion to some people who may want to take this route, like I did, like I said, I created boundaries. I don't think you're always going to get closure from somebody. I
Mm-mm.
don't even care whether, and to be honest with you, sometimes they might give you their feelings, their ideas, and have a full conversation with you, and you still don't get closure, because it's still killing you inside. It's still burning you. It doesn't matter how many conversations you have, you agree, you disagree, whatever, and you're still going through it. So at the end of the day, in my opinion, I think, like Chuck was saying, like, sometimes, or like Siraj was saying, sometimes you just gotta let folks go. And that's my method. My method is, I'm going to fix my four walls in my house. I'm going to fix me. I'm going to fix my four walls. And then I'm going to start, like Natural and the other ladies you start with your youth and your children. And I don't even care what y'all did, how it became, what happened, where, who, what, why, no more. I'm going to fix it from this day forward
Yeah.
within my four walls, and deuces to everybody else outside of it.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
me.
Anybody else have anything to say or add before we go into a closing?
Real quick, protect your peace. That's what it all comes down to. It's okay to say no. It's okay to put yourself first. A generational curse itself is the feeling that we always got to put ourselves second. We always got to put other people before us. It's okay to put yourself and your mind and your peace first, because you can't help anybody to that extent unless you take care of you. So protect your peace. That's all I got.
I would have to say, one thing in healing, you know what I'm saying? Set realistic goals of healing. Let it be a realistic goal. We want to heal from all these things, but can we really? What is going to be the most realistic thing for you to move on in your life? Not outside life, only your life. So I would always have to say, because we can't succeed unless it's realistic, unless it's something that's really we can actually attain. So I would say in your healing journey, think about the things that really matter to you to heal from and focus on that. That's going to be realistic for you.
Asada?
Oh, you call on me. um, the thing that, in closing, I'm going to say this, that I did not realize that my aunt May had been a victim herself. So that just opened up a whole new dynamic for me on how to really talk to her. And now I'm not as hostile as I felt I would be, because now that's one thing we pretty much have in common. And she doesn't want to talk about it, but I may be the one to help her get free maybe if I don't become as hostile, maybe through her freedom, I might get my freedom. So, and I am the generational curse breaker in my family, but I also separated from my family. So, but in closing, I have to weigh the options here that my aunt is a victim. So, and y'all just helped me tonight because now I'm not as mean because I'm gonna call her when I get off this call.
Oh, I love
Amen.
that. Don't make me cry.
That's awesome.
Won't call her because I feel horrible because I was like really gonna crash out on her. And that's when my mom was like, "Don't do that." Now I see why my biological mom said, "Don't do that."
Yeah.
Y'all help me tonight because now I feel so much. I feel better when I can call my aunt because, like I said, I haven't called my. I don't even think I talked to my aunt in years.
Wow.
I see her in passing, but just to call her, I never call her. So
And sometimes it takes that, a little bit of separation so you could get some type of understanding. And I'm so glad, I'm so happy that this conversation was able to help you and on your journey to your healing as well. I'm
Yes.
just so happy for you. And please let me know how that goes. Because
I will.
you and I, we talk. So let me know how that
I
goes.
sure
Okay.
will.
And so anybody else have anything to say? I want to thank you all for coming on and being transparent for one. And that's one thing that, that helps us heal is to be transparent and to be vulnerable at times. And this platform is not to judge anybody. I'm very transparent as well, and nobody could say anything about me because I put it out there my damn self. So, so whatever I say on the podcast is like, I'm not ashamed of my story. I'm not ashamed of things that I went through, because sometimes we have to look at it like, okay, some things that we went through was never our fault, you know? It's just every action has a reaction, and sometimes we have to fix ourselves because some of the things that we have experienced in life. So, as we wrap up this conversation, I want y'all to remember this: healing is not about blaming the past; it's about freeing the future. Breaking generational cycles require courage for one, honesty with yourself, and a willingness to do the uncomfortable work, the work that that you really don't want to do, but that you have to do, right? So at some point the cycle has to stop. Healing is a personal choice, and we have to understand that and remember that. So we may not be responsible for what happened to us, right? But we are responsible to what we choose to do.
Amen.
Breaking the chain starts with us. And you are not disloyal. Just like you said, it took years, right? Right? You chose your peace. So you are not disloyal for choosing peace. Peace over chaos. You are not disrespectful for setting boundaries for yourself, saying no, and you are not wrong for wanting better for yourself and for the generations coming up after you. So that's all I would like to say. But until next time, family, keep healing, keep speaking your truth, and remember, we said we wanted change, right?
Yep.
We gonna get it.
So sometimes the change start with us.
Yes.
So I am your sister, King Bade. Peace and love to you all, and see you all next week. Black Power.
I thank you.
Be
Thank
before there.
you. Abibi 40. Peace.